You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that reveals facts, truth, research, and statistics and never messes around. We lay down the entire truth about everything regarding your Detroit and Michigan sports teams, no matter if it's good or bad. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no coddling, no pop culture, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com, follow us on Twitter at Michigan_Truth, and like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth. The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
Episode 312 of the Michigan Sports Truth Week in Review is in session. Taylor Phillips, Buck Geno. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips and Buck Geno on Twitter at BuckGeno3, 3 I's for Roman numerals. Got 5 teams to talk about today. Let's get to the Red Wings first. The Red Wings, of course, retained Jeff Blashill. And that, like you pointed out, if you're going to keep Ken Holland, you might as well keep Jeff Blashill, and it's the only way to rebuild, as far as we know.
Well, I mean, it boils down to this: who's going to take that job? And there's probably not a lot of people lining up to take that job with the state of the roster and the state of the team. So, I mean, really, there's probably no other choice to do anything but keep Jeff Blashill and say what you will about him. Continuity is something that you need to lean on in rebuilding, and having the same face there every day gives you a sense of what you know is going to happen. And again, you don't fire somebody without having a better replacement in mind. And right now, the NHL coaching market's pretty thin. I'm sure there'll be some movement here as the season dwindles to a close, with some playoff teams maybe jettisoning their coach depending on how they finish. But there's really just not a lot of great options out there that the Red Wings could get away with, especially for the money that they're going to have to pay, because you have to think about it, and have to be a major upgrade in talent if you were going to get rid of Jeff Blashill, and that also means spending more money. Chris Illich probably is interested in doing that. Jeff Blashill can be had relatively cheaply, and so it makes sense they would retain him for maybe not all the right reasons, but the reasons that they do keep him do make sense.
Yeah. No other way to go. So, I guess that completes the picture. So, we've already given the lowdown on the 2-year extension and how it fits in with the duration. We solved the puzzle on why the Wings have kept Jeff Blashill. So, I guess everything's all set with the Red Wings. So, let's move on to the Tigers.
That one is long gone.
They lost all 5 of the games that they played the past week, getting swept in 4 games by the Cleveland Indians at Progressive Field, 2-0, 2-1, 5-1, and 9-3. And then the series opener with the New York Yankees at Comerica Park, they lost 8-6, and then had their last 2 games postponed due to snow or rain. Because that was a storm coming.
Not an exciting week for the Tigers. Not many weeks are going to be exciting for them. A series of cold games at Progressive Field. Cleveland, obviously, one of the class of the AL. Detroit is not, so a sweep was not something that was real surprising to people. They played a couple of games close, but they were able to do so with pitching rather than offense. And then when the Cleveland Indians finally started hitting, Detroit really didn't have an answer. And the pitchers, Detroit faced all the top 4 in the rotation for Cleveland. That probably didn't spell a lot of success for them. And, of course, over the 4 games, they were able to score 3 runs once. They They finally broke their 24 innings without a run streak. They finally broke that during that series. So, it's the Tigers. They're not going to be good. And, the bad thing for them is that they got these games postponed. Really not necessarily bad for them per se, but bad for teams that are going to be contending later on. The Yankees figure to be one of those teams that contend in the AL East, and chances are they're going to have to play some makeup games later in the season. Typically, they only make one trip to Detroit per year, so they're going to have to squeeze those games in somewhere, and that's really going to be something to watch for in the schedule because they're going to have to be off days that are neutral, and in Major League Baseball, that tends to be an oddity for some reason, so it'll be interesting to see how they get those games in, and to see if the Tigers will have to play some more games after their season technically ends. If the Yankees and Tigers can't find any dates in the middle of the season, and the Yankees need to play those games for standings purposes to find out where they will be. It'll be interesting to see where they get those games made up. But the Tigers slipped to 4-9 after getting to 500 at 4-4, and that's not good. They will be playing perhaps we don't know. They have an off day scheduled for tomorrow, and then Tuesday they're scheduled to play the Orioles. We'll see how that goes with all the winter weather still hanging on here in not only Detroit but also in Baltimore. So it's be interesting to see how many games they get in here in the next week.
Yeah, it's no wonder. Like I pointed out again, MLB should shorten its season to start in early May or late April. Otherwise, if they were to continue to start the season in early April or late March, the season would have to start like south of the border or southwest of the border.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a team like Detroit or a team like Chicago, if you have them playing at home during these times, you know that these games have the possibility of being canceled. And they're going to have to make trips to Florida. They're going to have to make trips to teams that have indoor stadiums. And you'd think that you'd try to get those as far out as possible when you're talking about moving those games. So why not schedule the bulk of those games in the early part of the season? If they're not going to shorten the schedule, that's fine. But at the same time, Detroit's going to have to make some field trips, some road trips down to Florida to play Tampa Bay. If they play the Marlins in interleague play, if they play the Braves or some of those other teams in warm weather climes, why not schedule those early? Get those out of the way. That way you have most of the games. I mean, you can't control the weather, and obviously there's some teams that could have some rain issues, but for the most part, schedule those games with enclosed stadiums or in warm weather climates first. And yeah, it does suck for the teams that have to start out on the road, but that's what happens. And you get a bulk of your home games then shifted to the later part of the season, where if you're a contender, you might enjoy some extra home games at that time. So MLB might be forced to do that here because, yes, every season is different. But for the bulk of the opening days in Detroit, it hasn't been great weather. And even though it's one of the worst opening months on record as far as weather and getting games canceled, if you can take them down to the warm weather spots, at least you reduce your chances of them getting canceled and have more games to play in the first part of the season, because it's hard to get any momentum as a team and as a fan base when half the games you're supposed to be playing are getting canceled or moved around.
I can hardly personally wait for it. Tigers have Monday off, and then they're home against the Baltimore Orioles. Tuesday and Wednesday at 6:40 and Thursday at 1:10, and then they're home against the Kansas City Royals in a doubleheader Friday at 1:10 and 7:10, and then Saturday and Sunday at 1:10. Now to the Pistons.
Left sideline, three answers.
Ed Smith and I were discussing Pistons owner Tom Gores possibly keeping Stan Van Gundy as head coach and team president. According to ESPN, the Associated Press, Gores says the Pistons need to make major changes, but he thinks Stan Van Gundy's been, quote, good for them, deserves the conversation, unquote. Then the injuries that ESPN mentioned. And then Gores said, he sees value in the front office and the court being connected, unquote. And the Griffin trade was, quote, not a big move that Stan made without Gores, unquote. So Tom Gores is actually still very, very high on and loyal to Stan Van Gundy, possibly letting him play out the final year of his 5-year contract.
Well, and again, you go back to you don't fire somebody without having a better alternative in mind. And for the Pistons right now, they're kind of stuck in that mediocrity bubble of the NBA. They're not bad enough to really get to the low parts of the lottery. They're not good enough to get into the playoffs. They've traded their first-round pick this year, so they're not going to be able to pick there. And
that's Miles Bridges, by the way.
Unless they somehow slip into the top 3. But that's a pretty low percentage. That said, with Stan Van Gundy, having the court and the front office connected at some point, there are pros and cons to that. The one thing that I will point to is that coaches are built to win today. They are not built to win 3 years down the road. They are there to win today. And when you have a team president, sometimes that plan doesn't coincide with what's going on in the court. You look at Philadelphia, a very plain example of that, where obviously they've kept their coach through the tough times, but their long-term goal is finally being realized this year of getting into the playoffs and building a strong team full of young players. That's not the norm in the NBA and really most professional sports. And it's hard to say that the coach, who obviously with Stan Van Gundy thinking as a coach, making that trade for Blake Griffin, thinking he can put all his eggs in one basket this year and hopefully get to the playoffs, now it doesn't work. So now Stan Van Gundy, the coach, has to explain why Stan Van Gundy, the team president, authored the trade for Blake Griffin, because it didn't get them to where they wanted to be. Yes, Reggie Jackson was hurt, and that certainly didn't help them. But at the same time, they really mortgaged a lot of their short-term prospects to try to make the playoffs this year, and it didn't happen. And so now you're faced with a roster that isn't going to be made better by the draft. They're basically going to have the same guys, core guys, for the next season. And they didn't get markedly better as a team from last year. So it's going to be an interesting situation in Detroit, because if you get rid of Stan Van Gundy, you really have to hit the reset button. And I don't think that they're ready to do that, because Tom Gores is still trying to, he's got to make money. He's got to have a profitable franchise. And if you're going to break it down and hit the reset button, that's going to be hard to draw fans for that, especially with what they were able to draw in Little Caesars Arena this year. It's not going to get much better if you blow up the team. So it's a bad spot to be in if you're a franchise. You either want to be really good or really bad. That's kind of how it has to be. And if you're in the middle and you continue to be in the middle, it's a really tough place to get out of, because you either A, have to mortgage your long-term future for short-term gain, or in the case of the Pistons, you mortgage all your short-term assets, which is a first-round pick and some other things, to try to get in the playoffs, but now that didn't work, and so now you're left with nothing, pretty much, and you still have to be able to improve as a team in the next season. So I think that Stan Van Gundy, while he may not deserve another year as far as coach, there's not a lot of options out there, again, for the Pistons to go ahead and move forward with somebody else. So, kind of the same thing the Red Wings are in, where if you stay around mediocrity long enough, I guess that's job security, because you're not making the team markedly worse, and you're not certainly getting any better, so there's always room for improvement, and you can sell that as, hey, we don't have as far to go as some of these other teams in the league. And so I think that's where Stan Van Gundy sits. And like I said, it's a bad spot to be in as a franchise, because it's hard to make those moves. It's hard to maneuver the team, especially without a first-round pick. And you're going to have to get better as a team and not have anybody else coming in from the draft class to do it. So it's going to be a really tough job for them to get any better because they're going to have pretty much the same guys. So you have to hope that they play better. And that really lands with the coach. And the Pistons, throughout Stan Van Gundy's tenure, has proven that they're not going to get much better. So at this point, it's a really tough spot to be in, and they're right now hoping that the players play better than what they did this year, and maybe they can get some additions in free agency and maybe move some guys around and hopefully they play better. That's what they're really banking on, and we'll see if that happens or not. But you're not going to get through a season injury-free, and so if something happens to a core player, are they going to make that same excuse again? It's really hard to say that Stan Van Gundy has earned another year, or is it to coach the last year of his contract, but at the same time, like I said before, there's not a lot of great options out there to replace him with. And, I think that Tom Gores thinks that he's got something going. I don't know why, but he thinks he's got something with his current front office. And, again, goes back to not wanting to pay two guys to coach one team. And I think that's where they're headed. So, in the last year of his contract, same thing with Coach Blashill. You don't want to hit the reset button because that means all these new expenses and all these other things coming in to a team that might not be very good. So, I think that they're kind of locked in with Stan Van Gundy are the Pistons. And if they get better and they play their way into the playoffs next year, they're going to have to make a massive jump. Not just getting in at the 8th seed and getting blown out in the first round. I'm talking about they're going to have to win some games, maybe even a series, for them to think about extending him because it's really hard to say that they're poised to make a big jump in the Eastern Conference. Yet here they are, 9th in the Eastern Conference still, with some distance between them and the 8th seed. But at the same time, they're not that far away. And when you say they're not that far away, it definitely means that I think if Reggie Jackson was healthy and they had missed the playoffs, I think Stan Van Gundy would be done. But because he missed a significant amount of time and they made a trade that really changed the face of the team, I think that bought him some time. And by virtue of him being in a dual role, he actually bought himself more time by making that trade and having things happen rather than just playing out the season had they not made the Blake Griffin trade and ended up 9th or 10th. So it's all very confusing, but what it really boils down to is there's just not a great alternative. And I think the Pistons, while I don't think they're going to get markedly better next year, you have to hope that they find some magic in a bottle and are able to finally progress and really make some noise in the Eastern Conference, even though they don't look like they're built to do so.
Well, we're going to have to find out in our 5 questions segment later on what kind of major changes the Pistons are going to have to make if they're going to have to retain Stan Van Gundy. But before we move on, keep in mind the NBA reportedly passed an anti-tanking draft reform back on September 28th of last year and player resting rules. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported Thursday that the NBA Board of Governors passed new rules for the draft lottery reform and player resting. He noted that the new lottery system meant that curb tanking will be in place for the 2019 draft. That's next year. As part of the reform lottery, the team with the NBA's worst record will no longer have sole possession of the best odds to get the number 1 overall pick, as seen as it in this chart tweeted by Wojnarowski. The chart says, in fact, it'll be flopped the other way around. Each of the 3 worst teams will have an equal chance to get the first pick at 14%, whereas the worst team used to have a 25% chance, followed by the second worst at 19.9%, and the third worst at 15.6%, and so on. So the Pistons still have to tank starting next season.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the NBA is you have all these people talking about tanking and all these other things that are going on. Well, if your draft or your draft lottery is contingent upon you not being any good, well, then of course you're not going to be motivated to win games, especially if you're not in the playoff picture. And so, yeah, it's an easy way out, so to speak, to lose all those games or lose as many games as possible to get a better draft pick. And, for them to say, well, we're going to curb this tanking, well, this has been going on for as long as I can remember, as far as teams that are going to not put out their best lineups to perhaps get a better draft pick. I mean, that's just how it goes. If you get rewarded for having as many losses as you have, I mean, there's no better case than the team I mentioned before, the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, they didn't have any motivation to win a lot of games because part of their process was build as many high draft picks as they could possibly get and build a team based on those draft picks. And it took them 5 years, but they finally have made a team that is good enough to be a 52-win team and get a home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. And it's hard to argue against that type of logic when you're looking at teams that aren't as good. How can you tell them, hey, we need you to try to win as many games as possible, even though it may not be the best thing for you down the road? As I mentioned, coaches are built to win today, and GMs are made to have long-term success and continue with consistent results. And those two things typically don't shake hands a lot of the time. And for all these anti-tanking rules, I think what it's going to do is it's going to really force teams to do a lot of things in the draft that they may not normally do. And it can backfire. You can have teams that start to reach in drafts because they feel they have to win and are not going to be in the same position they were in the previous year. So when you look at the Pistons from their perspective, it almost behooves them to lose as many games as they can next year, because what that's going to do is present them with an opportunity to pick a good player, still have some pretty good players under contract, and hope to get better that way. But with these new tanking rules being put into place by the NBA, especially because you have a coach that's also serving as the team president, you're looking at, again, it's kind of a conundrum. Do you flat out tank and not be any good because maybe you lose your job and then somebody else gets to make those picks, or do you win as many games as possible, come up short, and end up losing your job anyway? That's kind of where the Pistons are at. And there's a lot of teams that are probably in that same boat, where they feel that winning games just to end up out of the playoffs and have a worse odds of getting the high pick, it may not be worth it for them. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But with the Pistons, that's going to directly affect them going into next year, because it's really going to penalize the teams that are at the bottom end of the spectrum as far as getting those high draft picks. And we could have some teams that are really bad now get stuck with higher draft picks, and then you're talking about making trades and doing other things so you can secure a pick that is really more in your wheelhouse as far as where your record is. So, NBA trying to make it a better product, and I get that, but at the same time, you can have a lot of teams that make bad moves and end up hurting themselves worse than if they were just allowed to go along their natural progress.
Yep. So, speaking of the NBA draft,
For three, yes, sir.
Moe Wagner of the Michigan Wolverines has officially declared for the NBA draft. So, the Michigan Wolverines are probably going to miss him, and Moe Wagner may enter, like, I'd say the second or third round, if not the first, if he's drafted. But that's going to be he's going to be included in one of our 5 questions. So, speaking of which,
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
the NFL Draft, NFL.com's Adam Rank, an NFL writer, projects the Lions to pick Darius Juice, or Guice, Guice, whatever, however you pronounce it, a running back from LSU, Louisiana State Tigers. He writes, "How is it possible you guys haven't had a good running back since Barry Sanders?" And the Lions do need a running game, not just one running back in LeGarrette Blount, for example, an entire running game unit. And as much as I love the fact that Rank loves the fact that the Lions have Matthew Stafford throw more passes than Clayton Kershaw throws in baseball in a given year, do you know that they are lifelong friends? Run the ball once in a while. You take Guice. I'm not telling you that he's this year's Leonard Fournette. I'm also not telling you that. I'm also not telling you that. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, what teams should do and what they end up doing are typically, they may not be the same thing. I should say they typically are different. But, I mean, you have teams that draft a need rather than what may be best for them as far as down the road. So at this point, you look at this mock draft that was put out there by NFL.com, and all these picks that he's putting in there make sense, but when you're getting down to 20, it's hard to believe that Darius Guice will be down there at 20. And if he is, you start to think of, why did 19 other teams pass on this guy? I mean, at some point, what a lot of people believe to be maybe the second or third best running back in the draft, why is he slipping all the way down to 20? Well, there could be a lot of other things that factor into that, because as soon as somebody goes off the board during the draft, that changes everybody else above them's draft strategy. So a lot of times, when you talk about what they should do and who they should draft, that can change on a pick-by-pick basis. So, Darius Guice to the Lions makes sense, but at the same time, they signed LeGarrette Blount for a 1-year deal. They have Amir Abdullah for another year on his rookie deal. And they have what is supposed to be a revamped offensive line. Now, granted, injuries robbed them of a lot of that last year, but to draft what appears to be the second or third best running back in the draft at 20, you have to wonder why there's other teams that you would think that don't have as good of a running game as the 20th best team in the NFL. You have to wonder why the teams are passing him all the way down. So I think that for the Lions, you can have all these mock drafts, you can have all these things that could go right or could go wrong for you. It's going to boil down to this: who's left, and what do the Lions need to plug holes in? Well, free agency has proven that they've plugged a lot of the holes that they think on defense, and they've hired a brand new coach where you think that running the ball and ball control would be a big staple of their offense, because they're going to lean heavily on the defensive side with Matt Patricia and Paul Pasqualoni being on the defensive staff. So if you have a defensive-oriented coaching staff, the proclivity is to draft a defensive player. And so do they draft another defensive player? Who's available? What do they think they need? There's all these things that come into play. So these mock drafts are fun to look at, but there's so many variables that go into this that, once somebody reaches or goes off that board in the first round, or really any round, when you're talking about first and second day, it changes everybody else's strategy. And so there's all sorts of speculation and things that lead up to draft. It's coming up here in less than a month, and you're talking about what teams should do and how they all may makes sense, and all these, like I said, all these picks that he's outlined make complete sense. But at the same time, you just don't know who's going to be there. I mean, when you're talking about Darius Geis as a running back, and I'm looking at some of the teams ahead of them, I mean, you talk about Green Bay, for instance. I mean, Green Bay just has nobody at the running back position. I mean, they're using converted wide receivers. They're using guys that just they can sign off the street. And for them to have a quote-unquote stud running back be able to start and play from day one, that's probably a higher value than them getting another wide receiver. I mean, really, at this point, there's a lot of teams that probably could use a running back and probably will draft him before he gets down to 20 at the Lions. It makes sense for them to be able to draft him, but you just don't know if he's going to be there because for somebody that is considered to be a great prospect as far as that position is concerned, especially with running backs being at a premium in the NFL and teams moving more and more to a platoon system rather than having one running back take all the carries. It's hard to see that the second best running back in the class is going to last all the way to pick 20. But if it does, then the Lions are going to have a choice to make. Do they draft a running back and put him into a crowded backfield with a free agent signing and a guy that they've had for the last 3 years, one of their former first round draft picks? Or do they leave that spot alone and go somewhere else as a much more needed spot to fill? So these mock drafts, like I said, are fun, but there's so many things that can happen between now and the draft that anybody could have. I mean, they could go 1-2 for all we know. And like I said, there's teams that need a lot of things. When you're down at the first, second, third, fourth pick, there's a lot of things that you need. That's why you're that bad. And running back and quarterback, those are typically, your high-profile positions, and those tend to get snapped up pretty quick. So we'll see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, the free ticket lottery is launched for the 2018 NFL Draft in Dallas from April 26th to April 28th. And that's when the draft starts, April 26th on a Thursday, and that's next week. A week from Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. So, that leaves us to our 5 questions segment. Let's go ahead and get started on that.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. How will the rebuild for the Red Wings fare with Jeff Blashill as head coach?
Jeff Blashill, before he got to the Red Wings, was a winner in every level of coaching that he had been at. So when you're talking about player development and getting guys in the beginning of their careers, you would think that Jeff Blashill would be a perfect fit because he's used to coaching guys that haven't made the big time or guys that are trying to get their way into the draft. It just makes sense that he would be a better coach
the NHL
with a team that, right? I mean, you'd think that he'd be a better coach when given a lot of young players to have at his disposal, and that has not been the case really at any time during his tenure with the Red Wings. So for as bad as Blashill has been with his coaching and his strategy, at the same time, you have to wonder, what would he have done if they would have started rebuilding as soon as he got in there? What if he would have had all the young players that they had on the roster at the end of the season when he first started, and he had them for the entire time? Because obviously the GM makes all the roster decisions with input from the head coach, but it's pretty much been Kevin Holland's baby, and he's the one that's been signing all these veterans to bad deals, signing guys on the free agent pool that are past their prime. And so Jeff Blashill's been really kind of dealt a bad hand as far as development goes, because development is his game. development and getting people to play 2 or 3 years down the road is really what he's good at. He's good at having young players at his disposal. And so that's what he's proven to be able to do. And then they bring him up to Detroit to do the exact opposite, which is try to make the playoffs right away with a bunch of veterans. And that was just a bad mix, really, to start with. But now maybe he's going to finally realize that, because Ken Hound is truly going to be going all in on this rebuild. I mean, there's no excuse to not have a bunch of young guys next year on the team. And maybe Jeff Blashill may not get the same levels of success that he's had in earlier coaching stints, but it's a situation that's more familiar with him. So to really answer that question, I think that if he's given the chance to coach a lot of these young players, hopefully he hasn't been soured by these last 3 years in Detroit, and he's able to still do what he was best at, which is communicate to young players and get them to play in a system and be able to develop. And maybe, just maybe, he can succeed. So I don't want to say that I'm totally unsold on Jeff Blashill, because I know for one thing I wouldn't hire him to coach a veteran team ever. But for a young team that has a lot of players developing and they're not expected to do a whole lot, that's the type of team that I want Jeff Blashill to coach. And I'm certainly hoping that that's the type of team he has next year.
Next question.
Question number 2. How many estimated games will be postponed by inclement weather for the Tigers this upcoming week?
Well, it's pretty bad if we have to make that one of the 5 questions, because the weather has just been so terrible. But if you look at the forecast, I mean, Tuesday and Wednesday don't look great. And even though it's supposed to dry out and get some higher temperatures later in the week, there's still some threats of rain and other things in the long-term forecast. So I think that Tuesday and Wednesday definitely are in peril, and it could extend into Thursday just depending on how the field holds up. You're talking about really, you've had snow, you've had rain, you've had all sorts of different weather roll through here in the last week, and that takes a toll. And so I think that at least 2 is not a bad number to go with, because it would just be almost dumb luck that they're able to get all the games in. And if they're losing one game, like I said, the weather doesn't look great throughout the rest of the week. I think that probably 2 would be something that they could definitely have to reschedule. So I'm going to go with 2.
I'm going to have to go with 3 in case, just a precautionary number.
Next question.
Question number 3. Will Pistons owner Tom Gores retain team president and head coach Stan Van Gundy? I think yes.
Yeah, I would have to say yes, too. Just the tenor of what they've been saying over the past week after the season's ended. And like I said, we're not going to know until usually the first or second round of the playoffs which teams have openings. It's hard to make that decision until everybody's got their ducks in a row as far as who's going to be there and who's not. And there are playoff teams that will lose in the first round, and they could very well let their head coach go because they think that they underachieved. So while that might be the case, I don't think the Pistons are really looking to replace him, because I don't think that there's going to be anybody that's going to get fired or possibly get fired from their job that's going to be better than what Stan Van Gundy has to offer. Plus, you have the fact that he's both the team president and the head coach. So if you get rid of him, are you getting rid of him just for the head coaching spot? Does he really want to be the team president? There's a lot of logistics there that have to play just right if you want to be able to make that move. So I think their safest play, as you said before, is to retain them, and I think that's what they'll do.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Question number 4. What kind of major changes are the Pistons targeting if they retain Stan Van Gundy?
Well, I mean, it's hard to make major changes to a team that you think is a good core group. I think that they obviously made some missteps this year in free agency, and they also made some missteps at the trade deadline. And And so it's going to be kind of hard to rectify that because they have a lot of guys with contracts that they're going to have to move around. And some of the guys they signed this year the past year in the off season, guys like Langston Galloway, didn't get a lot of playing time. You have guys like Eric Moreland, who was supposed to be the backup center, and then when they moved Boban Marjanovic, became the de facto backup center, even though he didn't get a ton of minutes because Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond were playing a lot in the front court. So when you're talking about major changes, I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to revamp their bench and try to find somebody else that's an immediate impact, maybe at the 3 or the 4, because right now they just don't have a lot of depth when it comes to scoring, and all the moves they made didn't make them any better as far as that's concerned. So the major changes I think are going to have to be, obviously, one thing is going to have to come is going to be free agency, because they don't have a first-round pick right now. So unless they make a trade to rectify that, and they won't really know until the draft lottery hits what they'll be missing out on, and there's not going to be a lot of teams ready to move a top 5 or even a top 10 pick in this draft. They're going to have to really build it from the back end, which I mean free agency and lower round draft picks in that second round, and also maybe getting extra picks in those rounds by trading off some players. So I think the major changes are going to come from guys that are already on the roster, maybe getting some more playing time and being more prominent in their roles. That would be the major changes I think would happen, because they're really kind of tied as far as what transactions they can make. And if they have to make a big trade, you'll be trading assets again for what may or may not pan out. And sometimes the devil is the most comfortable position to be in. And so they have all these players that they know what they've got and what they don't, and may try to, what I would say, develop from within, which means that they're going to have to get better with the guys they already have. So the major changes I would say are probably going to be guys that didn't play as much, or guys that maybe didn't get a big chance to play this year, maybe getting more of a chance next year to prove themselves.
Next question.
Finally, question number 5. Which round of the 2018 NBA draft could Moe Wagner of U of M be picked in?
Well, I definitely think he's going to be a first-round pick. I don't think you leave to go to the NBA if you're not going to be a first-round pick. And he thought about it last year and pulled back, and I think that was a good move for him, because if you look at the other guys that went early, he would have had a tough time cracking into that first round, although you never know. Like I said, you get teams that go off the board sometimes and think they've got something, or make an educated guess based on what they know. But I think that this year he should be able to go in the first round. Now, a lottery pick, that may not be the case. It really is going to depend on where the chips fall and who's picking where. But I definitely think he's going to go in the first round. And I think that his better option, or his better landing spot, would be a team something like the Spurs. So I'd see a team that has a good system in place, and coming from a college system that is a very good barometer for how he's going to be playing in the pros. So he's going to be basically a stretch 4 in the NBA, just as he was in college. He's going to have to land with a team that is going to need some flexibility at that position. So I think that he lands in the first round. I can't say exactly where, because we don't know who's going to be drafting where. We know where the playoff teams are going to be, but as far as the lottery is concerned, it's going to depend on where those lottery picks fall and who needs what. But I just don't see him not getting drafted in the first round, because there's really not much for him to prove in college by going back for his senior year. And I think that a team will take I don't even want to call it a flyer, but I think the team will take a chance on him. And really, if he's drafted by one of the playoff teams, that's probably his best option to have a better career, simply because he's not going to be forced to play heavy minutes and learn on the job for a bad team, where he can get into the swing of things and start to work his way in on a team that already has a established rotation, has an established core, he might be a very good role player on one of those teams.
Absolutely. So that wraps up our 5 questions segment. And to our entire audience, if you want to answer those 5 questions, just replay that segment portion of this episode and answer them the best you can without going out of line.
Pencils down, everyone. It's time to find out what's your grade.
Only one event to grade, and that's the Wings officially retaining Jeff Blashill as head coach.
I'm going to give that a C+, and the reason I give it a C+ is it's down the middle. They could have definitely let him go after this year and gone in a different direction, and nobody would have complained. They also could have retained him, was what it seems to be the choice they've made, and they really aren't markedly worse. And so for a team that doesn't have a lot of options, retaining their coach and having some continuity, I think there's something to be said for that. So I'm going to give it a C+, because I don't think he's the best coach for them, but he certainly isn't the worst one for them. And so that's why I'm giving him the grade that I am.
Yeah, it's very almost 50-50. So that's what's your grade segment. So for our audience, if they have a grade for that event, post it in the comment bank in this episode, and please don't go out of line. That's episode 312 of the Week in Review. Before we sign off, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is searching for a wider local audience that is fans of sports. So please spread the word about the Michigan Sports Truth podcast, its Facebook page, and its Twitter handle at Michigan_Truth. Buck, Geno, thanks very much. We'll talk to you next week.
Very good.
All right. So I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips, and Buck Geno on Twitter at BuckGeno3, 3 I's for Roman numerals. We'll talk to you next week on episode 313 of the Week in Review. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
Mission complete.